My name's Diego Alvarez, 22 years old, born and raised in the heart of Westlake, Los Angeles. This city's my home. The hum of taco trucks on every corner, the strum of mariachi guitars drifting from open windows, the warm scent of fresh tortillas weaving through the streets. It's a place where my parents, Miguel and Sofia, planted roots after a treacherous journey from Mexico in the 90s. Dad's 50 now, a quiet man with hands roughened by years at construction sites, always cautioning me about the shadows of ice. Mom, 48, fills our tiny apartment with love. Pausily simmering on Sundays, its spice a comforting embrace. Life was a steady rhythm, school, odd jobs, family dinners, until the morning of June 6, 2025, when that rhythm broke. It started with a bang. Not a knock, but a jolt that yanked me from the couch where I'd crashed after a late shift. Through the blinds, I saw flashing lights, dark uniforms swarming the street. ICE agents, their vests glinting under the dawn, were raiding a house 2 doors down. Shouts cut the air, Spanish pleas tangled with English commands. I stumbled to the kitchen, heart pounding. Miguel stood by the counter, coffee pot trembling in his hand, his face draining of color. ¿Qué pasa?" I asked, voice shaky. He peered out, muttering, "Malditos ICE, they're back." Sofia rushed in, apron dusted with flour, eyes wide with panic. "Esos hijos de... Diego, quédate adentro." But I couldn't stay put. I grabbed my jacket, stepping onto the porch. The scene was a nightmare. Neighbors huddled, some sobbing, others filming with trembling phones. An agent dragged Carlos, our neighbor and father of 3, toward a van, his wife's screams piercing the morning. "This is our home!" she cried, clutching their youngest. My fists clenched, anger flaring. These were my people, my community, and ICE was ripping it apart. Miguel's hand clamped my shoulder. "Get in now," he hissed. "You want them to take you too?" I yanked free. "This isn't right, Dad." He glared, voice low and urgent. "This is survival, hijo. You don't understand the risks." Back inside, the TV blared the news. ICE sweeps across Westlake and Paramount, targeting undocumented workers under Trump's new policy. Social media lit up with videos, crying children, agents with batons. I scrolled X, reading about a Home Depot raid in Paramount, though IC denied it. Gavin Newsom's voice cut through, calling it an outrage, while Trump's response echoed, 2,000 National Guard troops deployed, Marines on high alert. The city tensed, and our home mirrored it. Miguel paced, muttering about border patrols from decades past, his fear a heavy presence. Sofia knelt by the sofa, rosary beads clicking, torn between her memories and our reality. Dinner that night was a battlefield. Pozole sat untouched, its warmth a cruel joke. "We should protest," I said, breaking the silence. Miguel's spoon hit the table with a clatter. "Estás loco? They'll deport us." I leaned in. "This is my country, Dad. I was born here. We can't hide." Sofia sighed, her voice soft. "Diego, your father's right. We crossed deserts, paid bribes, nights we thought we'd die. We can't lose it now." I slammed my hand down. "And Carlos? His kids? This isn't just about us." Miguel's eyes darkened. "You think shouting changes that? I've seen raids. People vanish. Stay safe, or you're no son of mine." The words stung, a slap I felt deep. I stormed to my room, chest tight. Through the thin wall, I heard Miguel's heavy breaths, Sofia's quiet sobs. I grabbed my phone, diving into X, Los Angeles protests, hard ICE raids, reading tales of families split apart. A post from U Resistance tallied 29 arrests on June 7th. It lit a fire in me. I had to act, but as I lay there, the city's distant hum a reminder, I thought of Miguel teaching me soccer in the park, Sofia's corridos filling our home, their pride at my high school diploma. Now that pride felt fractured. Tomorrow would test us all. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Diego lay on my bed, the hum of Westlake streets a restless pulse through the walls. The image of Carlos being dragged away, his wife's screams, burned in my mind. Miguel's warning, "Stay safe or you're no son of mine," echoed a weight I couldn't shake. But the fire inside me, kindled by those ex-posts, Los Angeles protests, Tashash, ICE raids, grew hotter. I had to do something. At 6 a.m. on June 7, 2025, I slipped out, scarf and water bottle hidden in my bag, defying Miguel's order. The federal building downtown was a sea of voices by mid-morning. Hundreds gathered, banners waving. "No human is illegal. Stop the raids." The air smelled of sweat and smoke, tension thick as the crowd swelled. I spotted Javier, my friend from the cafe, his face set. "You made it," he said, handing me a sign. "ICE won't stop unless we make them." I nodded, gripping the cardboard. "Justice for our community." Chants rose, "Si se puede," echoing off the concrete. For a moment, I felt invincible, part of something bigger. Then the gas hit, a sharp hiss, and clouds of tear gas rolled in, stinging my eyes, choking my throat. National Guard troops, their faces masked, advanced, batons raised. Screams erupted as people scattered, some falling. I coughed, stumbling, Javier pulling me back. "Run!" he yelled. But I froze, watching an agent grab a protester. David Huerta, a local activist, his voice hoarse from shouting. The crowd surged, and I joined, yelling, "Let him go!" A baton swung, missing me by inches. The guard fired rubber bullets, and panic took over. I ducked behind a car, heart hammering, as 29 arrests were reported on X that day. Back home, I burst in, face streaked with tears, clothes reeking of gas. Miguel was at the table, coffee cold. "Where were you?" he roared, standing. "Protesting," I said, defiance in my voice. "They gassed us, took David." His face twisted. "Estás loco. I told you to stay safe." Sophia rushed in, eyes wide. "Diego, ¿qué hiciste?" I threw my bag down. "This is my home. I can't hide while they tear it apart." Miguel stepped closer. "I crossed rivers, dodged bullets for you. This is how you repay me," I shouted back. "You're scared of shadows. This is 2025. The argument exploded. "You think shouting saves us?" Miguel yelled. "I've seen families vanish, raids in the 90s, people never seen again." Sophia cried, "Basta, both of you!" But I pressed on. "Carlos's kids are alone now. We have to fight." Miguel's voice broke. "Fight? They'll deport me, take you too." I glared. "I was born here, Dad. They can't touch me. But you're living in the past." His hand raised, then dropped. "Get out of my sight," he growled. I stormed to my room, slamming the door, tears mixing with gas residue. Through the wall, I heard Sophia's sobs, Miguel's heavy silence. I pulled out my phone, scrolling X, videos of the clash, resistance. Update on 27 more arrests on June 8th. Guilt gnawed at me. I defied Miguel, but his fear wasn't just paranoia. It was memory. I remembered him waking from nightmares, muttering about border patrols, Sophia calming him with stories of their village. Now I'd added to his burden. But the images of David's arrest, the gas clouds, fueled my resolve. I couldn't stop. The next morning, a knock came. Police asking about the protest. Miguel answered, voice steady, but his hands shook. "My son was home," he lied. They left, but the tension lingered. Sophia found me later, her eyes red. "He's scared, Diego. We came here for you. Dessert nights, coyote fees. Losing you." I hugged her, guilt deepening. "I just want to help," I whispered. She nodded. "But not like this." That night, Miguel didn't speak, his silence a wall. The clash wasn't just with ICE, it was tearing us apart, and I didn't know how to fix it. The silence in our Westlake apartment was suffocating. Diego, my heart still racing from yesterday's protest, felt the weight of Miguel's glare and Sophia's tears pressing down. It was June 8th, 2025, and the city outside buzzed with unrest. Ex-posts from U Resistance LA reported 27 more arrests, the National Guard's presence thickening. I defied Miguel, joined the fight, but the cost was mounting. Little did I know the worst was yet to come. That afternoon, I slipped out again, drawn back to the federal building. The crowd was smaller but fiercer, faces set with determination. Javier was there, his voice hoarse. "They're cracking down harder," he warned. "Stay sharp." I nodded, clutching my sign. "Justice for our community." Chants rose, "No pasaran," echoing as we marched. Then a sharp crack. Rubber bullets. Gas canisters hissed and chaos erupted. I coughed, eyes burning, stumbling as agents closed in. A hand grabbed my arm. David Huerta, still free, pulled me toward safety. But another agent lunged, yanking me back. "You're coming with us," he growled. I struggled, shouting, "I'm a citizen!" But the cuffs clicked, and the world blurred. The detention center was cold, a concrete box reeking of fear. I sat with others, David, a woman clutching a rosary, waiting. Hours passed, my phone confiscated, no word to my family. I thought of Miguel's warnings, Sophia's prayers, and guilt gnawed at me. Outside, protests raged, but inside, I was trapped. Finally, a guard called my name. Miguel stood there, face haggard, Sophia beside him, eyes red. "Let's go," he said, voice tight. The release papers were signed. I'd been held for disorderly conduct, released due to my citizenship, but the relief was laced with tension. The drive home was silent, the city's lights a stark contrast to our mood. At the apartment, Miguel exploded. "What were you thinking?" he roared. "I lied to police for you. They could have deported me," I shot back. "I was fighting for us, for Carlos, for everyone." Sophia stepped between us. "Basta, this isn't helping." I slumped on the couch. "They gassed us, Dad. Took David again. I had to do something." Miguel's fists clenched. "And I had to risk everything to get you out. You think this is a game?" Sophia's voice broke. "We came here for you, Diego. Desert nights, coyotes, losing you." I looked at her, then Miguel. "I didn't mean to scare you," I said softly, "but hiding won't stop ICE." Miguel turned away, muttering, "You don't know what I've seen. Raids, families gone." I remembered his nightmares, Sophia's tales of their journey, thirst, fear, hope. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He didn't respond, but Sophia hugged me, her tears wetting my shoulder. The rift remained, a wound not yet healed. That night, I scrolled X from my room, videos of gas clouds, you, justice, for all's call for a community meeting, guilt mixed with resolve. I'd been arrested, but others suffered more. Miguel's fear was real, rooted in a past I'd only heard about. Sophia knocked, bringing tea. "He's angry," she said, "but he loves you. We both do." I nodded. "I want to help, not hurt." She smiled faintly. "Then find a way that keeps us together." The next morning, a neighbor, Senora Lopez, visited. "We're holding a prayer circle," she said, "for Carlos, for David." Sophia agreed to join, but Miguel hesitated. "It's not safe," he muttered. I pleaded, "Dad, it's not a protest, just support." He relented and we went. The circle was small, candles flickering, voices soft in Spanish and English. A retired Marine, Mr. Daniels, spoke. "I serve to protect, not to harm. These raids are wrong." His words shook Miguel, who stayed silent but listened. Back home, the air felt lighter, but the divide lingered. Miguel avoided my eyes. Sophia mediated with quiet strength. I knew the clash wasn't over. ICE's shadow loomed, and my arrest had deepened the scar. But that prayer circle planted a seed. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a path together. The morning after the prayer circle, the air in our Westlake apartment felt different, less heavy, but still fragile. Diego, my chest tight from the arrest and the fight with Miguel, woke to the smell of Sophia's coffee, a rare peace offering. It was June 9th, 2025, and the city outside simmered with tension. Ex-posts from You Justice for All announced a community meeting at the local church, a response to the ongoing ICE raids. The seed from last night's circle had taken root, and I knew I had to act, not just for myself, but for us. Senora Lopez arrived mid-morning, her voice warm but urgent. "The meeting's at noon," she said, "for Carlos, David, and others." Sophia nodded, adjusting her shawl. "We'll go." Miguel, nursing his coffee, frowned. "It's a risk," he muttered. "Guards still out there." I stepped in. "Dad, it's not a protest, just people talking. Please." His eyes met mine, a flicker of the old pride there, and he sighed. "Fine, but we stay low." We walked together, the short trip to St. Mary's feeling like a truce. The church was packed, dozens of faces, Latino and beyond, candles casting a soft glow. Mr. Daniels, the retired Marine, stood at the front, his voice steady. "I fought for this country," he said, "not to see families torn apart. These raids are wrong." A murmur of agreement rippled. A woman, Maria, shared her story. Her husband taken in the Paramount sweep, kids left behind. My throat tightened, thinking of Carlos. Then a priest, Father Ramirez, spoke. "We're here to support, not fight. Let's plan aid, not anger." I glanced at Miguel. He listened, his jaw tight but still. Afterward, a small group formed, Senora Lopez, Mr. Daniels, and us. "We'll collect food, money," Lopez said, "for the families." Sophia offered to cook, her eyes brightening. "Pozole, tamales, something to share." I volunteered to organize, feeling a purpose beyond the protests. Miguel stayed quiet, but he didn't object. Mr. Daniels pulled me aside. "Your dad's scared," he said. "I've seen it in vets. Past trauma. Give him time." I nodded, the weight of Miguel's history sinking in. Back home, the mood shifted. Sophia hummed as she chopped onions, a rare sound since the raids began. "This feels right," she said. I helped, chopping peppers, the kitchen filling with spice. Miguel watched from the table, his silence less hostile. "You think this helps?" he asked finally. "It's a start," I replied. "Not just hiding." He grunted but didn't argue. A small victory. That evening, news broke. Trump's address doubling down on the guards' role, calling protesters lawbreakers. X lit up with hashtag Los Angeles protests, You Resistance lay decrying the militarization. My anger flared, but Sophia's hand on mine calmed me. "We do our part," she said. I nodded, planning the aid drive. But the peace was short-lived. A knock came. Police again, asking about my arrest. Miguel answered, voice steady. "He's been home," he lied, his hands trembling. They left, but the tension returned. Later, I found Miguel on the balcony staring at the street. "Dad," I started, "I'm sorry for scaring you, but I can't ignore this." He turned, eyes weary. "I crossed borders, lost friends to get here," he said. "Seeing you in cuffs, it brought it all back." I stepped closer. "I get it now, but we can fight together, safe ways." He didn't reply, but his hand rested on my shoulder, a hesitant bridge. Inside, Sophia smiled, sensing the thaw. The next day, we set up the aid drive, tables with Sophia's tamales, Lopez's donations. Neighbors joined, even a few Anglo faces, moved by Mr. Daniels' words. Miguel helped carry boxes, his silence now purposeful. I felt a spark. Maybe this could heal us, but as the sun set, I knew the real test was ahead. ICE's shadow loomed, and our family's wounds were far from mended. The aid drive had shifted something in our Westlake home. Diego, my resolve tempered by guilt and hope, woke on June 10, 2025, to the clatter of Sophia's pots, preparing for a bigger gathering. The community meeting had sparked a plan, a public event to show unity, inspired by the prayer circle and Mr. Daniel's words. Outside, the city still simmered. Ex-posts from You Justice for All touted a peace rally at MacArthur Park, a response to Trump's latest address. It was our chance to heal, but the road ahead felt uncertain. Senora Lopez arrived with balloons, their colors bright against the gray morning. "We'll write messages," she said, "for Carlos, David, all of them." Sophia smiled, packing tamales and pozole. "Food brings people together," she said. Miguel, still quiet, helped carry supplies, his hands steady but his eyes distant. "You sure about this?" he asked me. "It's not a protest," I replied. "It's hope." He nodded, a reluctant ally, and we headed out. MacArthur Park was alive. Dozens gathered, Latino families, Anglo supporters, even Mr. Daniels in his Marine cap. Balloons bobbed, each tied with notes. Freedom for Carlos, justice for David. Father Ramirez led a prayer, his voice carrying over the lake. "We stand for peace, not division," he said. I handed out tamales, watching faces soften with each bite. Sophia worked beside me, her laughter returning as she chatted with Lopez. Miguel stood back, observing, but I caught him nodding at Mr. Daniel's story of defending immigrants during his service. The rally peaked with the balloon release. We gathered at the water's edge, messages fluttering in the breeze. "For our community," I said, releasing mine. Sophia's followed, then Miguel's, hesitant but there. The colors rose, a silent plea against the guard's presence blocks away. Applause erupted, and for a moment the tension eased. But then a siren wailed, police approaching. Panic flickered. But Mr. Daniels stepped forward. "We're peaceful," he told them. They lingered, then left, the crowd exhaling. Back home, the mood lifted. Sophia served leftover pozole, the kitchen warm with laughter. Miguel sat beside me, his voice low. "I was wrong to push you away," he said. "Seeing you fight, it scared me, but it's who you are." I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry for the arrest, Dad. I just wanted to help." He gripped my shoulder. "We help together now." Sophia smiled, tears in her eyes. "Mi familia," she whispered. The rift, though scarred, began to mend. The next day, news spread. Community efforts had pressured local officials to review ICE's tactics. X buzzed with peace, rally LA, you resistance LA, praising the turnout. I decided to study law, to protect others like us. Miguel joined a neighborhood watch, his fear turning to action. Sophia hosted more gatherings, her voice strong again. One evening, we visited Carlos's wife, bringing food. Her smile, though sad, was a victory. As I stood on the balcony that night, the city lights twinkling, I reflected. The clash with ICE, with Miguel, had tested us. But the rally, the balloons, the tamales, they'd rebuilt us. My arrest had been a wound, but it led to this. Family, community, hope. The fight wasn't over. Trump's policies loomed. But we'd found our strength. And maybe, just maybe, that strength would carry us forward. The morning after the MacArthur Park rally, our Westlake apartment buzzed with a new energy. Diego, my heart lighter from the balloon release, woke to Sophia's voice on the phone, arranging another gathering. It was June 11, 2025, and the city's pulse had shifted. Ex-posts from You Justice for All hailed the hashtag Peace Rally LA as a turning point, with local officials hinting at a response. The community's strength had sparked hope, and I felt a plan forming. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about change. Senora Lopez arrived with a stack of petitions, her eyes bright. "The rally worked," she said. "Newsom's office called, wants a meeting about ICE tactics. We need voices." Sophia nodded, packing tamales. "We'll go," she said. Miguel, sipping coffee, hesitated. "They'll ignore us," muttered. I stepped in. Dad, they're listening now. We can push for Carlos, David. He met my gaze, the old pride flickering, and sighed. All right, together. We headed to City Hall, a fragile alliance restored. The meeting room was tense. Officials in suits, community leaders, and us. A aide, Ms. Carter, led the discussion. Governor Newsom's concerned, she said, but we need specifics. Mr. Daniels spoke first, his Marine authority clear. These raids tear families apart. Wrong, un-American. Maria, the woman from the church, added, My husband's gone, kids alone. I stood, voice steady. I was arrested for protesting. My dad crossed borders to give me a life here. ICE threatens that. Eyes turned to Miguel. He cleared his throat, stepping forward. I fled Mexico. Deserts, coyotes, fear. Seeing my son cuffed, it's the same terror. Stop this. The room fell silent. Ms. Carter scribbled notes. We'll review, she said. No promises, but pressure's building. Outside, Lopez hugged us. You did it, she whispered. Sophia smiled, tears in her eyes. Mi familia spoke. But the real test came later. Word spread that Carlos might be released, a direct result of the meeting. Hope surged, though Miguel remained guarded. We'll see, he said. That evening, a call came. Carlos was free, pending a hearing. We rushed to his home, arms full of tamales and pozole. His wife, Elena, opened the door, tears streaming. Gracias, she sobbed, hugging us. Carlos, thin but smiling, clasped Miguel's hand. You fought for me, he said. Miguel nodded, his voice thick. For all of us. The kitchen filled with laughter, children playing, the weight of days past lifting. Sophia served food, her songs filling the air. I watched, a warmth spreading. Our fight had borne fruit. The next day, X exploded with #CarlosFree, You Resistance, lay crediting the community push. Newsom announced a task force to oversee ICE actions, a small victory. I sat with Miguel on the balcony, the city lights twinkling. You were right, he said. Hiding wasn't the answer. I grinned. We did it together. He chuckled, a rare sound. Law school, huh? Make me proud. I nodded, committed. Sophia joined us, her arm around us both. Mi corazón, she said, always. A week later, we hosted a fiesta. Tamales, mariachi, balloons with new messages. Unity wins. Neighbors danced. Mr. Daniels brought cookies, and Carlos played with his kids. I spoke, vowing to fight for justice. Miguel raised a toast. To family. To home. The clash with ICE, with each other, had forged us stronger. As the music played, I knew the battle wasn't over. Trump's policies loomed. But we'd found our footing. This was our story, our strength, a testament to love and resilience.